Hey everyone, welcome to RYGR Sports. I'm Yash,
And I'm Logan.
and today we'll be talking about the Sweet 16 in March Madness.
Yep. So first weekend of the tournament has passed, and we have 16 teams now with a chance to win it all. When you take a look at these first two rounds, I mean, pretty much a similar situation as last year. I mean, as college basketball continues to evolve with the transfer portal and NIL money, we're starting to see less and less upsets after each year. And I think that it has a lot to do with teams kind of stacking up with great players. A lot of the most expensive, like programs are really stacking their teams with great players, and that's causing a lot of these smaller schools, a lot of these Cinderella schools, to really not have as big of a chance anymore. So we have really two teams out of 16 in the Sweet 16 that were not supposed to be there, that being the Texas Longhorns and the Iowa Hawkeyes. And even both of those teams are still Power 5 schools that are obviously pretty talented. So, sure, they weren't supposed to be there, but I mean, they're still great schools. So, when I take a look at these matchups, there are a couple gimmies. Like, some of these schools are going to win these games. That being, I think Michigan, beats Alabama pretty convincingly. Um, I think Duke handles St. John's. The rest of them are pretty close. I think Arizona, being a number one seed, is expected to go out there and beat Arkansas um, on Friday. Uh, or on Thursday. They are 7.5 point favorites, and they did not look that great against Utah State in that second round matchup. They only won by 12, so I think that game is going to be very good considering how well Darius Acuff has been playing for Arkansas. I think that game is very interesting and not a gimme at all. The other games, Iowa Tennessee, I think will be very low scoring. I think those are two good defenses. Edge to Iowa State. I think they have a little bit of a better roster and have impressed me a little more this season. But Tennessee is always live to beat anyone. They just upset Virginia in the second round. Um, Purdue and Texas should be a good game. Hopefully, I think Purdue does run away with that one in the later stages of the game. Um, they are 7.5 point favorites, so I'll give that one to Purdue. Illinois Houston should be a banger. Those are two very good teams. I do like Houston to move on in that game, but that's going to be a great game. And then what I think is going to be the game of the Sweet 16 is going to be Michigan State and UConn. This game couldn't be any closer. The line is 1.5 points to UConn, so basically a 50-50 game. Michigan State beating their first two opponents pretty convincingly. And, UConn trailed against UCLA kind of late in that second half, but ended up winning the game by 16 as they kind of dominated the last 7 or 8 minutes of the game. So they move on to play Michigan State. Obviously, we have Jeremy Fears on the Michigan State side, who I think is the best point guard in the country, leading the nation in assists, and he's really the X factor for Michigan State. That team runs through Jeremy Fears. Now, I am a Michigan State fan. I've been following this team for 10 years now, and every time the tournament comes along, I know Michigan State is going to do their thing. Tom Izzo has been to this tournament 28 straight years, and I believe has I think it's like 16 Sweet 16s under his belt, 8 Final Fours. I think he's the greatest coach ever. He's going to have them ready to play. But on the other side, Danny Hurley's UConn Huskies are extremely talented. They have this guy, Therese Reed Jr., who had 27 rebounds in their first round game against Furman. He is a monster. So Michigan State is going to have to keep him off the glass if they want a chance to win this game. And, Michigan State is always going to be one of the best rebounding teams in the country. So I do think they contain him and ultimately do find a way to win this game late. I don't think it will be easy. I think this game is going to be low scoring. But I'm going to take Michigan State in this game very close. Um, I do hope they move on just because, watching an Elite Eight game for the second straight year would make me very happy. So I'm going to hand it over to Yash for more on the Sweet 16. I do think we have a lot of great games. One positive you get from not a lot of upsets is you get closer games in the Sweet 16. If you have a Cinderella team that really isn't supposed to be in the Sweet 16, there's always a chance they just get run out of the gym like we saw a few times in the last few years. So the fact that all 16 of these teams are good leads me to believe that we're going to see some pretty good games on Thursday and Friday, and I'm really looking forward to see which teams end up moving to the next stage of the tournament. But the Sweet 16 is where this tournament gets real. This is where these games become very intense, not too predictable. So I'm excited to see what happens here.
I know you. Going back before I kind of give you like my insight on the games that are happening this weekend. I did hear you say the coach for Michigan State, in your opinion, is the greatest coach of all time. Is that true? So, what do you think of?
Bias involved.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I do believe. Not necessarily from a winning perspective. Obviously, Mike Krzyzewski, um, um, coached Duke to many championships, and winning wise, I think he is the best coach ever. But if you're talking from a culture standpoint, and building a university up, loyalty, commitment, just turning boys into men, I think Tom Izzo is the greatest to ever do it.
I can kind of see that because Duke generally does get better
Right,
talent
and Michigan State is not
available.
necessarily known
Yeah,
for recruiting the best talent, and they
yeah.
also aren't, known for producing a lot of NBA players. So the fact that Tom Izzo has done more with less is why I believe that he is the greatest coach ever.
Okay, I can see that argument. Okay. Anyways, so I know you had your game of the week as Michigan State and UConn. For me personally, I think the game of the week is going to be Illinois and Houston. Um, I do think that game's probably going to. I think that's going to be a high scoring game. Both obviously pretty high powered offenses. Um, I think I do think Illinois is going to win that game. I know Houston's seated a little bit higher, but I think it's going to be really close. I think pretty much all the games this week are going to be good. I think the only game that's going to be a blowout, and I could be wrong, obviously, but I think that's going to be Texas and Purdue. I don't really see Texas doing that much. I mean, the Purdue's, well, I think second or third, right?
Or second, yeah,
Second. I mean,
second
it's
seed.
it's going to be crazy. I think, obviously, with St. John's last this week going against Duke, the number one seed, who's also my pick to win the NCAA tournament. Obviously, I'm talking about Duke. Um, I think the St. John's Duke game is going to be pretty good as well. I mean, you look at how Duke's been playing recently. Obviously, I believe the very first game, the round of 64, they didn't play that well, right? Because the game was pretty
No,
close.
they played horrible. Yeah,
Um, but they kind of bounced back a little bit last week. Um, I think again they're gonna win. I think this game is gonna be a little bit more closer, and I think the games are gonna continue to get closer as the rounds kind of come in. Obviously, teams are gonna be more talented. Another game that I think is gonna be really good is Michigan and Alabama. Now, Michigan, in my opinion, I think is the second best team in this tournament. So, I don't really think Alabama stands a chance against Michigan, at least as of right now. I don't know what you think about that, but
yeah. Michigan, as a Michigan State fan, I do not like Michigan. I think, they bought their team really. It's not built. I mean, all five of their starters have not started their career at Michigan, which is, you know, as college basketball evolves over the years, you kind of have to expect things like that. Players are wanting more money, and big schools like Michigan are able to give them that money. I do give some credit to Dusty May, their head coach, who recruited these guys out of the transfer portal. However, I don't agree with the way Michigan is doing things really because they throw a few $1 million at some guys and they go to Michigan because they're getting a lot of money and they end up having a super team because they have the most money. And you have other teams like Purdue and Michigan State who build their teams from the ground up. They recruit freshmen. They get better and better each year until they're seniors and they graduate from that university. They're not transferring over. They're not transferring schools around the country. They're not moving everywhere each year. So I agree with how those schools do it, but I can't deny the talent that Michigan has on that roster. They have really, I think they have like, I don't know the exact number, but I think they have like 12 or 13 wins by 20 plus points this year, which is an insane number. And this 9.5 point spread for Michigan is warranted, just because this offense is so good. Now, I think it's interesting, if Alabama is one of the fastest paced teams in the country. So, if this game all of a sudden becomes a shootout, I like Alabama's chances more than if they kind of play a half court game where possessions are long and there's not a whole lot of shots in the game. So I think Alabama's key to victory is to push the pace, and kind of tire out Michigan a little bit. I know Michigan has a very good defense as well. So I think Alabama, if they want a chance to win this game, they got to get hot from three, and I think that's their only path to victory.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. Now this is a question for you personally. What do you think is going to be the highest scoring game of the Sweet 16?
It's Michigan Alabama for me.
Really?
Yeah, Michigan usually scores over 80 points per game. So does Alabama. Another game that I could see it could be coming close to that is Arizona and Arkansas. I know both of those offenses are also very good. Arkansas plays fast, and so does Arizona. So that's one that I could see um, getting up there in points. But if you look at this line on the Alabama Michigan, it's 175. That's one of the highest lines I have seen this season. So I think that game easily becomes the highest scoring game. Both of those teams play very fast, and both of their offenses are very good. The Arizona Arkansas one is 166 and a half, so about 10 points behind the Michigan game. Um, but from an odds perspective, I think the Michigan Alabama game is going to be your highest scoring game. The lowest scoring game, I think it could be Michigan State and UConn, both elite defenses who don't really play too fast. These guys take their time with their possessions, they run sets. It's not a run and gun kind of game. So I think that one will be the lowest, and I think Michigan Alabama will be the highest.
Okay. I was thinking actually the highest was going to be Arkansas and Arizona. Obviously, I know you said that would be, in your opinion, the second highest, which is fair. And then lowest scoring, like you said, Michigan State and UConn. I mean, you put two great defenses together, especially, it gets harder to score when you kind of get in games like this. I mean, you kind of look at championship games or, just playoff games in general, throughout the years, it gets harder and harder to score. There's more and more pressure. Players are a little bit more antsy, especially in the beginning of the game. So, um, yeah, but there is actually one thing that I kind of wanted to ask you about here. Do you think that Texas has a chance to make the Final Four? Not the Elite Eight, the Final Four.
Uh, the answer to that question is no.
Absolutely
They
not.
would have.
No chance.
I don't give them a chance. They have to go beat this Purdue team, who has been one of the hottest teams in the country over the last 2 weeks. They beat Michigan in the Big Ten championship. And then last round they beat Miami, who's a very solid squad. Obviously, they played Queens in the first round, which they were supposed to win that game by 30. So I don't give Texas a chance. If they somehow beat this Purdue team, they have to play the Arizona Wildcats, who I have winning the national championship. They
Okay.
would probably be double digit underdogs in that game uh, as well. So I don't think this Texas Longhorns team has a chance to make the Final Four. A lot of credit to them though. They beat BYU in the first round, who I had in the Elite Eight. So that was a great upset. And then last round they beat Gonzaga, who was a 3 seed. So a lot of credit to the Texas Longhorns, but I do think their magic kind of runs out in this game against Purdue. I think Braden Smith is the second best point guard in the country. And I think he and Trey Kaufman Wren and Foster Lawyer and all those Purdue guys. I think they're a little bit too much for Texas in this round, but who knows in college basketball, it's a sport where a lot of upsets happen, so they can get hot from three. That's how upsets usually happen. Teams get hot from three. If they can all it takes is a hot shooting night from them and a bad night for Purdue. And I think this Texas team has a shot, but no, I don't think they make the Final Four here. They just are going to run into too many good teams.
Okay, that's fair. I do actually, I do think that has a chance to be the upset of the playoffs because I don't think there'd be another. Because I feel like if
Yeah,
Texas does manage to beat Purdue, right, people would be a little bit less shocked if they ended up beating Arizona. Correct?
yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, if Texas is going to do it, this is their chance right here. I mean, I personally did not see them making the Sweet 16 at all. I,
No.
I didn't even think they were going to make like the round of 32, but obviously they proved me wrong. So, I'm continuing. I love seeing Cinderella stories. I do hope that they keep it close though, because as we know, sometimes when these teams kind of get really deep in the playoffs, Elite Eight, they kind of just get blown out. So, I'm hoping the game stays close regardless of if they win or lose.
Yeah. As far as all eight of these games, I think all eight of them are great games. The only one that I really could see being kind of a dud is Nebraska Iowa. That total is very low at 132, so we're not going to see a lot of points. but this is the third time they are playing each other, I believe. They actually split their season series 1-1. So
Cool.
Iowa as a 9 seed to the Elite Eight would be very, very interesting. Nebraska is only 1.5 point favorites in this game. So essentially, this is a pick 'em game. So if Iowa can somehow manage to win this game, I mean, this is going to be one of the better stories that we've seen in the last few years. I think Nebraska's better than them and end up winning the game. But that's a very interesting game right there. I think Bennett Sturts is one of the best players in the Big Ten, and he's really going to have a big game if Iowa wants to beat this, really solid Huskers team who, before this year did nothing in the NCAA tournament. This is the first year they've actually won a tournament game, so that's interesting there. But if there's isn't anything else that you want to cover regarding these games, that's gonna do it for this video. Looking forward to a lot of great games. This part of the tournament is always the best part, so we should see a lot of exciting finishes for these next 8 games, and ultimately we'll see who makes the Elite Eight. We are going to be doing a Final Four video. We're not going to be doing an Elite Eight video. Just because we're going over all the teams right now, and I think the Final Four is a little bit more important than the Elite Eight. So we'll make a video once that round comes. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to our channel. We're going to be pumping out a few more videos over this next week. And yeah, if there's nothing else you want to cover, Yash, that'll do it.
I'm good. All right. See ya.